Proportional Response, Book 1, Chapter 21, Part 19, Rage Against the Night. Breaching system heliopause, Admiral. The Altons can certainly see us now. Ensign Uthra Shalar did not look up from his station, but he heard the Admiral's grunt of acknowledgement. He ran his six-fingered hands over his console and looked up to check the plot of the fleet's flag bridge. He made sure the Zoltan ships and the enemy sensor network had been properly highlighted on the display of the planetary system. His breathing remained calm and his hands steady, even though part of him wanted to shout in triumph. Forsaking the Empress and the worlds of my ancestors was hard, but worth it to bring the fight to the Zoltan plague at last. He'd lost a sister and two nephews in a Zoltan pirate attack several decades ago, before the humans had crashed onto the galactic scene. The Empress had been unable to do anything to avenge the fallen of that colony. Now, however, he could. He gritted his teeth as he looked up again at the plot. "This is for Arena, you lizard pukes." It had taken hard work, dedication, and plenty of study, but it all paid off here. He got to sit on the flag bridge and work the radar for the operation to knock the Zoltans out of the last occupied Confederated world system. He felt a small glow of pride in his hands as he performed another analysis of his fleet's targets, and found them woefully inadequate to the task. "Admiral, the Zoltan fleet has broken away from various planetary orbits to intercept us, and I can get a better reading on their tonnage from our microbuoys spread through the system. Our fleet outweighs them by 2.5 to 1. A grim chuckle spread through the flag bridge as the Admiral simply nodded acknowledgement. Confederated rules of engagement estimated on par engagement ratios at 1.3 to 1 in favor of the Confederation, and dictated a minimum ratio of 1.6 to 1 for any engagement. If you didn't have a ratio of at least 1.6 to 1, you were supposed to retreat from the battle unless there existed a damned good reason not to. Sheila allowed himself a small smile and continued to finesse his scans, trying to get as much data about the enemy ships as he could. It didn't take long for the comm station to sound off. "Admiral, I have the Zoltan commander on the line. He is relaying a signal through their sensor buoys." Sheila snuck a look at his company. "I don't know why this human admiral refuses to grow a beard. I think their admirals look so much more authoritative with beard." He suppressed the thought and tried to concentrate on his scans. The central plot in the room lit up with a Zoltan face superimposed over the star system hologram. The lizard spoke without preamble. "You risk the wrath of the Republic's ever-victorious fleet. Human, on yourself, your crews, and the people on the planet. We have been merciful in our occupation, so far." The Admiral waved to cut the Zoltan off. "Like hell. Confederated Command has been in communication with our forces on the ground, High Master, Barbarian of the Third Circle of Stratagems, and whatever the hell other titles you have crammed, without what we humans would consider earning them, to your name. You have made numerous attempts to round up human civilians, and either place them in camps, exterminate them en masse, or take them off planet for God knows what reason." The Zoltan's face loomed larger in the display as he leaned forward. "Silence, you impudent hairless primate. Those people you refer to failed minimum intelligence tests required to be considered sapient beings, as do so many of your kind. When you take away someone's translator and then give them a written test in a language they've never seen, it is hardly a surprise that they fail. Nice try though. We have video of translators being confiscated and... You know what? I'm not having this argument with you, you pompous, overbearing, witless windbag. I will give you one chance. 1. To withdraw your troops from the garden world you occupy, as well as every space installation on this system, and get your ships out of here in good order. You have The Zoltan screamed, a high-pitched shriek that, after a few moments, the speakers in the bridge refused to transmit anymore. Sheila involuntarily ducked his head, partly as a protective reflex and partly in pain, and then looked around sheepishly. The fact that several of his human crewmates had shown a similar reaction made him feel a little better. The fact that the Admiral hadn't so much as twitched a muscle in his face made him feel a sense of pride, rather than embarrassment. I have never heard of a Zoltan making a noise like that. I wonder if he used an enhanced... The Zoltan, seeing that he'd managed to interrupt the Admiral, even if he failed to perturb the man, spoke. "You do not get to make demands of me, low-born human. Yes, I know who you are. Your kind aren't the only ones with an intelligence service. You are nothing more than gutter trash who climbed out of the sewers of your homeworld and now stands there with delusions of adequacy, thinking you can stand against your betters. You cannot possibly hope to beat me in battle. I have been trained in the arts of war since an age when you were still gathering trash from the street to try and sell for food. Look at my fleet. Look at their formations, which, even now, confound your senses. Do you think your feeble ships will be able to maintain fire on any given ship long enough?" The Admiral laughed loudly, which brought a look of fury to the Zoltan, but interrupted his speech. "Can you not count, man? I have more ships than you, and have you beaten tonnage by more than 2 to 1. I don't have to outfox your precious formations, though I assure you my captains and I are more than up to that task, and we have already done so against better movements than you have displayed. To simply pour fire at you until you and your fleet have been reduced to dust. Come on, even you, Zoltan voters, can't be so thick that you can't see the snout on your own face. Stand down now and withdraw. If you don't, I will destroy every ship you have. This is your last warning." The Zoltan started to respond, then looked at something off screen. His eyes then went red, and he looked back. "How dare you use Sultan communication channels to broadcast your words to my entire fleet? That is a violation of war protocol, and our declaration of war for this conflict." The Admiral rolled his eyes and pointedly pressed his mute button. "Which came after the human declaration of an unlimited war, and under the League Charter articles the declaration of war must be agreed on by both sides to be binding, and we didn't agree to jack shit." The Admiral raised his voice and made some sort of signal to the comm station without looking. "Sultan fleet, now hear this. You are the last fleet to occupy Confederated territory. You may not have known this before, but you do now." Something began to cause some lag in Sheila's sensor data, so he pulled up a diagnostic to see why. The reason turned out to be because comms was hogging all of the bandwidth for the sensor buoys to send out video of defeat after defeat of Sultan forces. The Admiral continued, "You have no hope of victory against us, not in any sense of the word. Even if you manage to take out the maximum tonnage of our ships possible, you will not achieve parity, much less superiority, in body count, so you can't even hope to gain a technical victory. You know what that will mean to your families back home, and you will have died for nothing. Refusing a voter's orders can be survived, sometimes, if the voter is found to be stupid enough. Death can't. Make your choice, and do it quickly." Sheila allowed himself a harsh smile. These humans, so direct and straightforward, beat centuries of kowtowing to the lizard bastards. The Zoltan commander howled in rage, and he began to issue order to attack, heedless of the fact that he was still transmitting. Mercifully, Sheila wasn't even sure on which end, cut the connection. Sheila forwarded his analysis of the enemy tonnage and ship configurations to the Admiral, and made the appropriate adjustments to the icons on the plot. He then concentrated on filtering out the noise caused by Zoltan attempts at signal jamming and general background static, working to make those icons appear as close to their actual positions as possible. The movements of a few groups of ships began to drift in strange directions, and he got very busy as he worked the controls to figure out what had gone wrong. Then those ships started transmitting to other Zoltan ships, and all hell broke loose on the flag bridge. It seemed like every comms and cyberwar officer on the flag bridge wanted to speak at once. The Admiral slapped his hand once on his chair, and all broke off. He called out a name, one of the cyberwar console officers, and the woman sounded off. "Sir, we have unencrypted transmissions coming to us from various ships in the Sultan fleet signaling surrender. Others are transmitting to both us and the Sultan that they will fight their way out if they need to, but that they intend to leave. Some of the remaining enemy fleet have simply switched their transponders back on and are firing up their singularities while turning away from us." The Admiral nodded. "Comms, detail your people to mark those who are transmitting. Cyber, mark those transponders. Radar, I want you to detail some of your consoles to watch closely the remaining fleet who haven't responded." An icon popped up on Sheila's console as he got the order he'd hoped for. Track the ships not in any of the groups listed by Cyberware. His fingers flew across his board as he filtered extraneous data and marked each ship, then peered deep into each ship's hull to ascertain their intentions. Something didn't look right. Several of the defected ships seemed to be listing and giving off spurious energy readings. The comms officer sounded off.
"Admiral, you need to see this."
The plot flickered, and the Zoltan commander once again appeared.
"Now hear this, you worthless ingrates. I have destroyed all of the ships which signaled their surrender, and I will destroy any of the rest of you who attempt to flee. I am an admiral of the Republic fleet, and you are sworn to obey me unto death. Walk-a-bal."
A hand reached up and grabbed the admiral by the neck, pulling him out of the display. Then the transmission suddenly cut off. With a mounting sense of dread, he turned back to his console and found what he'd feared. All of those ships which had shown anomalous readings had disappeared from his scope. Each one represented little more than a cloud of gently spreading space dust. He took his highest resolution scans and carefully archived them in an uncompressed log so Intel could pore over them later, and tried to swallow the bile that had come up from his stomach. To murder entire ships worth of men for refusing to follow suicidal orders. I knew these Zoltans could be monsters, but